The CLT Center, or the International Center for Community Land Trusts, was founded in 2018 to support the worldwide movement of CLTs and similar strategies of community-led development on community-owned land. Governed by a board of directors from 7 different countries, we work as a bridge connecting practitioners across borders, a library preserving and sharing knowledge, and a think tank sharing innovative practices that support collective land stewardship. We also publish books and monographs under our imprint. But before we go too far, what exactly is a community land trust? To mark this year's celebration, World Habitat created an animated video that brings community land trusts to life, explaining how they work, why they matter, how they're spreading around the globe. So whether you're new to CLTs or a longtime advocate, we're happy to premiere this short film that will be available to a screen near you tomorrow. So I'm going to play it really quick for everybody.
Our towns and cities are facing some big challenges. The cost of living is skyrocketing, climate change is threatening our future, and many people are struggling to find affordable places to live. Across the world, land is increasingly being treated as a financial asset or investment rather than just a place to make a home. Investors see land as a way to make money. They often buy it up, bit by bit, to build luxury developments, or leave it untouched, waiting for it to go up in value. This drives up prices, making it harder for those on lower incomes to be able to stay in the communities where they live. They just can't afford to live there, or they might be evicted by a landlord who sells to the developer. They could end up far away from the places and people they have known all their lives, or even become homeless. But what if there was a better way? What if people realised that they could be stronger by getting together? A community land trust, or CLT, is a type of non-profit membership organisation that helps pool the ownership of individual plots of land together into one big trust. So instead of each person owning their individual plot of land with their home on it, they just own the building, and the land is collectively owned by the members of the CLT. Suddenly, it's a big piece of land, worth a lot as a whole, and the CLT is a powerful entity, so you can raise money against it to start improving infrastructure, such as drainage, roads, the supply of basic services, the environment and biosphere, and you can afford to employ lawyers to challenge encroachment or illegal treatment. Because the CLT gives its members, and not profit-driven investors, the power to decide how their land is used, managed and developed, you can secure your future in an affordable, safe and secure home, and build a thriving community that serves your needs. This is not an unachievable dream. There are hundreds of successful and strong CLTs all over the world, and thousands of people whose lives have been improved because of them. To find out more about community land trusts and successful World Habitat Award-winning examples from all over the world, visit our website. You can also visit the International Center for Community Land Trusts website for more information on CLTs.
Yay! So you've all just witnessed the world premiere of this amazing video. Thank you so much for witnessing it. And as I mentioned, tomorrow is in fact World Community Land Trust Day. So I hope that you will all share that video widely, please. Um, and just one quick thing that now in its 4th iteration, World CLT Day is a global celebration of the power, creativity, and diversity of the CLT movement. It's about raising awareness, building solidarity, and frankly, kind of just celebrating all the hard work that the people on this very call and all of you are doing. So one quick thing is that I just want to let you know that the session is being recorded and it'll be shared with all the registered participants afterward. So stay tuned. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mariana Gasho, program leader for the World Habitat Awards at World Habitat. So take it away, Mariana.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you everyone for being here. Speaking of global movement, we had 270 people register for this event from 32 different countries. So we are very pleased to see this growing interest and good reception everywhere. But also we have brought excellent panelists and that bring with them the excellent examples of what they are doing on the ground. So we are very pleased to have you all here. I'm going to introduce the panelists in a minute, but also first I wanted to mention why we're hosting this session. World Habitat is a British charity that is working globally to identify and promote good housing practice around the world. We run the World Habitat Awards in partnership with UN Habitat for the last 40 years. And through that, we have identified some excellent initiatives that are helping to solve the housing crisis. There is, of course, a lot more to do. But back in 2008, so almost 20 years ago, one of our gold awardees was Champlain Housing Trust in the US. And that's how, as an organization, we got involved and excited about community land trusts. And since then, we have also awarded other initiatives who are present here. And we wanted to take CLT Day celebrations as an opportunity to remember why they are important, what they have achieved, and hopefully help inspire others in different places as well. So I hope you're in the audience and then we can help you bring your ideas forward. So together with me today, I have Michael Monte, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Champlain Housing Trust in the US. Michael, maybe you can wave for everyone. We have Maria Olga Julia Pacheco, who is the Community Engagement Director at the Caño Martin Peña in Puerto Rico. Hi, Maria Olga, and thank you for being here. We have Geert de Pauw, Project Manager at Community Land Trust Brussels, Belgium. And we have Jess Steele, who is the CEO of Hastings Commons in the UK. Our most recent gold award is not far from here. We also have Francesca Leonetti, who is an associate expert and works for the right of adequate housing at UN Habitat. Thank you, Francesca, for being here. And you will hear from all of them later. I just want to give a bit of an overview of what we will be doing. We have an hour and a quarter to discuss. I have asked Francesca to open the session with some perspective from UN Habitat. I will do a very brief overview of the projects that the panelists here represent, and then we will have a panel discussion where you will learn more about these initiatives and some time for questions and answers. You will see there is a question and answer button on Zoom, so please put your questions there. If you have them already, you can do it now. And if not, as they come up, and we will try to answer everything at the last section of this event. So I'm going to share my screen. I'll try not to take a lot of time. Okay, you can see the screen, I think. Yep. Just let me find my notes. So this is, our panelists again. And I will start briefly introducing Champlain Housing Trust, our award winner in 2008. As you know, or as you will know, is a very early pioneer of the community land trust approach of providing affordable housing in perpetuity. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to do too many things at the same time. Champlain Housing Trust is very important, for us and for the global CLT movement, because it not only provides a very early example that has innovated and continued over time, but also has inspired so many other initiatives since it was awarded also in 2008. They have innovated into homelessness, they combine rental housing and home ownership. But also, after they won the award in 2008, we organized a study visit there, which then this delegation hugely influenced housing community-led movements in places like Australia, in Europe, in the UK, and we will hear a bit about that later with the Community Land Trust Brussels, which is another of the initiatives that is here. You can see here some of the numbers of the Champlain Housing Trust. As I said, this is just a very brief overview, but we can send you these slides later for those who are interested, and you can hear from Michael as well. The second project that we are discussing today is the Caño Martin Peña CLT in Puerto Rico. It was awarded a gold award in 2015. And the interesting thing about the Caño Martin Peña is a community land trust that helped transform an informal settlement that was based around the polluted and flood-prone river channel into a sustainable community. And it provided a new model for improving informal settlements without them becoming unaffordable for the original residents. Huge contribution of the Caño to the global CLT movement, as it has moved what was maybe originally more suited for the global north to the global south, to informal settlements, and it's been taken over by others, such as the Favela CLT movement or project in Rio de Janeiro, which we have also collaborated with, and their work led directly to the founding of the CLT Center, who are also hosting the events with us. So again, some information here about the Caño Martin Peña, and you will hear from Maria Olga a bit more later. We move on very quickly to Community Land Trust Brussels, our awardees in 2021. Community Land Trust Brussels has advocated for the use of community land trust model in Belgium, but also across Europe. And that's one of the very important things about them, the work that they have been doing very generously to advance the movement in other regions. The homes that Community Land Trust Brussels provides are very affordable for people on low incomes, but also interestingly, the vast majority of residents have a migrant background. Here we have some numbers about the projects that have been completed and the ones that are under construction. And as I said before, here in particular was visiting the Champlain Housing Trust a long time ago, and inspired by the idea, started working for this to be transferred to other areas and also across Europe in more recent years. So we are very pleased to see these kind of things happening. So here we have some of the history of CLTV. And last but not least, we have Hastings Commons, our most recent awardees from this year. They received a gold award. And Hastings Commons is focusing on taking derelict and unused buildings around White Rock in Hastings in the UK into community custody and transform them into homes, social spaces and workspaces that are always affordable and accessible to residents. We have some of the numbers here, more than 9,000 square meters of space that have been brought into community ownership and positively impacting around 6,500 people. Now, it's early days in terms of, we just recognize this model, but one of the ways that we are collaborating or supporting Hastings Commons is on developing and testing an international hosting center as a base for national and international practitioners, researchers, and policymakers to learn and participate in community-led regeneration and the commons. So also is very interesting focus there as well in terms of sharing and advancing the movement. So these are very knowledgeable, but also very generous people and organizations with the knowledge, and we're very pleased to have you all here, and we'll hear more details later on. So I will stop here, and I will give the floor to Francesca to tell us a little bit about your perspective on CLTs from UN Habitat. Thank you, Francesca.
Sorry, it's 2025, yet I have not learned to unmute myself when started speaking. So hello, everyone. As Mariana mentioned, my name is Francesca Leonetti, and I work at UN Habitat. As you might already know, but just as a reminder, UN Habitat is the body within the UN system that is mandated to support sustainable and inclusive urban development. And we have been collaborating with World Habitat for the last 40 years on the World Habitat Award, which have recognized several community-led innovations throughout the years. This year, marking the 40th anniversary, we have been looking backwards, and indeed, as Mariana mentioned, we realized we started, CLTs were recognized very early on within the awards, and it's, as Mariana was mentioning, and as the video also explained, is no surprise, as the mechanism of community land trust has several benefits, and it can surely be a solution to some of the challenges that we see around the world. On our, from the point of view of UN Habitat, some of the points that, of course, are of extreme value is the community agency, the deep community agency that comes with community land trust, the fact that development is locally driven and it's really culturally sensitive. As mentioned in the case of Caño Martín Peña, it's really interesting the fact, also in Hastings, in the experience of Hastings Commons, it's really an interesting instrument that can couple inclusive upgrading of informal settlements and urban renewal. We often see in this once upgrading or renewal happen, land price spiking, and this can risk to accelerate displacement, but the collective ownership of land of community land trust manages to lock in affordability and the benefits for the community. It also supports the institutionalization of tenure security and collective rights. And it helps redefine, at the end of the day, what constitutes value for the community and not for investors or not on a market sense. While also so it helps to counter gentrification dynamics, but also still ensures that residents can build equity and can be the driver of development. And another point that I think it's really important to underline is the fact that community land trust recognize community land tenure, which is part of the is spread among many traditional land tenure systems, which have been often overwritten by private property and single property tenure systems. So it also provides with, I would say, a recognition of this type of collective tenures. And it restores a long-standing place-based knowledge system that existed in many contexts. This doesn't come without challenges, of course. I mean, I'm sure we will hear more, but from, let's say, a multilateral or an international point of view, we know that many policies and legal frameworks don't yet recognize and support community land trust enough, or at all in certain cases. And as UN Habitat, we are quite excited about the fact that last year, we started working with governmental focal points from ministers that are in charge of housing in the first multilateral forum focusing on adequate housing for all. Within this gathering of line ministers, there was a recognition that community land trusts are showing a lot of potential. But of course, there is a need from the side of governmental and of policymakers, especially to strengthen their understanding of the tool to ensure that they can properly direct policies to support this. So in the next couple of years, we will be focusing a lot of attention and efforts to this. And I wanted to mention that for those who might be interested, we will have at the end of June a number of opportunities where members, so focal points from different governments around the world, will gather to discuss and make recommendations that will turn into policy guidelines for themselves on topics around social housing, around tenure security, around informal settlements, and around housing finance. So all these 4 topics really interconnect with what Community Land Trust are doing. So for those of you, I mean, I would encourage as many people as possible who are interested in this topic to participate and to bring your enthusiasm and your knowledge to this discussion. So please feel free to either contact me or go through the organizers, which, by the way, I thank very much for inviting me today, to reach out and to see how you could contribute to this discussion. Yes, and thank you very much, and happy Hurley Community Land Trust Day.
Thank you very much, Francesca. And that's so important and good to know that there are also opportunities for influencing from the ground, from those who are here, from the attendees. So yeah, we look forward to ideas and further contributions. Great to have you here, and I know that you in particular and you and Habitat, the people you're working with, have been great supporters of the movement, and we really appreciate that. So without further ado, we'll go to hear from our panelists that are here. We are going to open the discussion with Michael, Mariolga, Gert, and Jess. If you have any clarifications about how I introduce your organizations, you can also do so. But also, as I mentioned before, I'm interested in you talking a little bit about some of the key lessons from your initiatives. How have you approached transfer and scale up of your of the work that you have done? Some challenges and recommendations that came from there, and what have been the social and environmental impact of your work. So I open the floor, and whoever would like to go first.
Well, I'd be glad to go first. I think we drew straws in alphabetical order as I think the order of the day. And thank you for this, and hello to everyone. And we really appreciate being a part of this day and this work. The handful of, I think, maybe sort of highlighting some of the important questions, lessons that we've had, and the things that really matter to us. Clearly, permanent affordability matters as a part of what we do. Without permanent affordability, the model really sort of weakens, and that's really an important aspect of everything that we do, even as we sort of expand to doing community facilities and rental housing and other forms of housing. That permanent affordability, that community ownership is key part. And I think the other thing that has mattered to us the most is that the community matters a lot. It really is the key part of what we do. We are responsive always to the local community. Now, we've been very lucky, and I would say the community has created this luck to have a governmental framework that supports permanent affordability and community land trust. So when people ask me what's important in terms of the success of CLT framework for CHT in Burlington, Vermont, it's that the government really adopted a policy that supports this community land trust movement, and permanent affordability is being the most important part of that. So that government framework and that community support, and I got to say, really being able to reach into the community, always being a part of the community, is the most important part of the work that we do as we grow and expand and become, a larger organization. Our work, all of us who work here are constantly engaged at the very, very local level about what needs to be done and how we could respond to the needs, using the notion of permanent affordability as the key aspect of what we do. After that, make sure you're always strong financially. That's the key part. That's the key part of everything we wind up doing. So I'll stop there, knowing that others have others more to say.
Thank you, Michael. And I think you touched on two things that I would like to bring to other two panelists. In particular, Jess, I know that the building a stronger community has been, well, it's part of everyone's work, but I know this is something that in the Hastings Commons project is quite crucial and central. So I'd like to hear from you from that aspect. And then maybe from Gert, you could tell us also a little bit about influencing the government, that I know is something that has been your focus for the last, I don't know how many years, many years. So if you'd like to respond, Jess, and then we'll go to Gert.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Hastings Commons grew out of, I think it's nearly 19 years now of sustained community engagement, the kind of engagement that Michael was talking about, that being there, being rooted in that place, being part of that community, and has always been about building community agency, really. And interesting to hear what you said, Michael, about the government framework. We don't really have that in the UK. We do have quite a lot of CLTs, and they are defined in law, but not in the same supportive way, I think, as you have. And so in that context, the big lesson for us has been, how do you do it in spite of that? And particularly, how do you do it in spite of gentrification coming at you? So particularly in Hastings, we're a little seaside town on the south coast, about 60 miles from London. We've been protected for a very long time from gentrification by a really terrible road, a really terrible train, and a really terrible reputation. Unfortunately, COVID meant that none of those things really mattered much anymore, because you didn't need the road and the train because you could work from home. And the reputation was, that fence was taken down during COVID because lots of people came and realised it was a lovely place after all. So we've seen an incredible rise in rents and house prices. But we sort of foresaw that a bit. People in the community foresaw that coming. And so there's been a bit of a rush to use a combination of kind of entrepreneurial risk-taking with community rootedness. Because we don't have the kind of government support and the government framework, we've had to be really agile and weave together lots of different kinds of money to be able to take the opportunity to buy the first building and then the next and then the next. And we've got 12 very different buildings, all of them previously empty, some of them seriously derelict for many years, and we have been renovating those. I think the biggest lesson in that, apart from this combination of sort of risk-taking with more traditional charitable community roots, phased organic development, so doing it a bit at a time. You cannot wait and just hope you're going to raise millions and millions of pounds and be able to do the whole lot. So you've got to get started and get community benefits straight away. And kind of that, so that phasing is really important. I think one of the biggest challenges we face is always access to capital. That we have had to weave together all these different small grants and medium-sized grants and loans and community shares and all sorts of things in order to make any progress at all. It would be much better if there was a clear process by which community land trusts in the UK could access the capital they need.
Thank you, Jess. Indeed. And maybe Gert can give us, because also your process with the government has also been linked to those finance, unlocking that finance, right? So Gert, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, first of all, I think that the two questions, the one of involving community and the one of influencing government are very much connected. Mm-hmm. When we started as a pressure group with the goal develop a community land trust that would provide housing for the most vulnerable people. We knew that it wouldn't be possible without government support. And we started by building a network, a very broad network of people in housing needs, community groups, civil society organizations. And this is what helped us convince the government to support us to do some pilot project in the beginning. And over the years, this coalition was also what made it possible to sustain and to grow and to convince the government. Today, we are no longer a pressure group. We are considered as a trustworthy government partner in the social housing policy here in Brussels. But we still keep on investing in this community building, which is essential for us, both well, for the success of our housing projects, but also for the successes of our organization. It's what gives us credibility towards the government. And indeed, today we have there is some legislation that recognizes community land trusts. Nevertheless, it stays very challenging to get funding with financial difficulties of well, public bodies all over the world, but also in Brussels. It is really difficult. But well, without this government support, it wouldn't have been possible. The challenge is also to be at the same time a trustworthy partner of the authorities and keep this autonomy and this community base, this independency. So this is something also always a thin line, but I think we managed, and it's part of the success until now.
Thank you, Gert, very much. Maria Olga, I would like to bring you in with your experience that I know in some ways has been very different to what has been presented by Michael, Jess, and Gert, but also with some similarities in terms of well, the community-led aspect, very important, and challenges with engaging with the government and funding. So would you like to tell us a little bit about the differences and similarities with your case?
Of course, first, I would like to thank you for the invitation. Thank you for having us here. I would like to start by thanking particularly John Davis, who believes in any initiative that starts in any place in the world. And I think it's a very important moment in terms of the progress of the CLT movement. It's being considered in very different areas, very remotely from where John is. So that has been key in our process. What has been said resonates with me a lot. I think that the strength of the community is what opens the doors for the government finally show respect at the end of the day and basically sees you as a partner. As Gert mentions, this doesn't happen overnight. In our case, it took us more than 23 years of constantly struggling, working permanently, working with the community that is fighting day and night for their community. And they found this possibility for their community to have a common cause where they build community by themselves. So that resonates with us. And I think we should bear in mind how we bring everybody to the table, recognizing the differences we can have, both from the community and also the private sector and the government. It's essential to work together to overcome the challenge. In our case, we were an informal settlement based on the self-construction of the communities. These people had occupied the land because of the reality in the last century. So that led us to the need to establish plans for development that will be implemented in our community. In our case, we designed a comprehensive development project that covers the social and the physical aspects as well. And today, we are making big steps forward in terms of the environmental restoration, the channeling of the river that I mentioned, and we are providing also basic infrastructure to these communities that are in the central area of the capital city. So although we have differences, I see that there are many similarities among us and we can learn a lot from one another.
Thank you very much, Maria Olga. That's yeah, really interesting and good to see so many similarities and similar challenges across, as you said, different geographies and very different contexts. Jess.
I just wanted to follow on from what Maria Olga was saying there about, because I think it's so important that CLTs are sometimes just seen as about housing. And of course, housing is so important to all of us. But I think certainly from my point of view, it's very much, I didn't come into it through housing. I came into it through community. And at grassroots level, community interests are not siloed into housing and employment and health and education and all these things. It's all interconnected. And so I think what's so special about what CLTs can do is this holistic approach to that community. And that it's also the other part of it is that because CLTs are, at least in theory, forever, that holistic approach can grow and change and adapt and evolve. And that's part of it. It's not fixed. So it's not siloed and it's not fixed, but it's rooted. And that's very powerful, but hard to explain, because a lot of people look at what we do and say, well, you do so many different things. How can you do all these different things? It's like, well, that's because people do all these different things and care about all these different things.
If I could just add to that, and thanks for that point, Justin. I appreciate the fact that you talked about displacement and gentrification, because that was the key reason why the Champlain Housing Trust and Burlington Community Land Trust was created in the 1980s, was to ensure that neighborhoods in Burlington, which were very low income, people did not get displaced. And we've been successful in ensuring that neighborhoods now are in fact secure and people are not, subject to that type of displacement. But that led to really creating community facilities and responding to the neighborhood in a wider range of sort of programs and responsibilities, including buildings for child care centers and for family rooms and event halls and a range of other things. And I think that's why I said it was important to understand that government creates the right framework to grow this movement, but also the community becomes really what you need to be paying attention to and respond to. And I think also to respond that Gert is right, you need the community to pound on the doors of government to ensure that the policies and programs are in place to get it done. And we were lucky to have early on a leadership in policy and politics to be willing to have their door pounded on and to respond in a good way to sort of that demand for better housing choices, more affordability, permanent affordability, all those things. So.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, and I think that's something that you have all seen, like that mix of taking the opportunities that as they come, but also creating the opportunities when they are not there, or as Jess said earlier, doing things despite not having those opportunities or that support. I really like that idea as well. I would also like to pick, as I said earlier, the one common thing between all of you is generosity in sharing what you're doing and supporting others in starting similar. And we have here some perfect examples of how Gert has been inspired by Champlain Housing Trust and then also created similar initiatives, but then also been pivotal in helping others get into forming their own CLTs. So I like to pick your brains, whoever wants to speak first on why this focus on transfer, on scaling up, and how, and what motivates you, but also what challenges you have found, and if you have any recommendations. Kurt.
Maybe start. Well, as you said, for us, it all started after a study visit to Michael's community land trust in Burlington, and it was super inspiring, and that's what's really made us decide that we wanted to do something similar in Brussels, and from the very beginning, we continue to receive good advice and support from people in the United States, especially from the Champlain Housing Trust, people like Michael or John or Brenda, who were so generous to help us. And we literally, well, we had to adapt a lot of the things, but we also took over a lot of the tools that they gave us. And of course, there's this practical aspect. It's also being able to show that it works somewhere else. This was really very important, because when you start explaining what a community land trust is in the beginning, it might be a bit overwhelming and sound impossible also. But when you can say, "Oh, look at what they're doing in Burlington," that was really super important for us. And well, it was also the generosity of our American friends that inspired us to do the same. And from the very beginning, when we started working in Brussels, we also invited people we knew from elsewhere in Europe to discuss with us. And this was also in our own interest, of course, because by helping to create this sector or network of community land trusts, it made it possible to grow ourselves too. And when we were referred to by others, these were also very important arguments towards our own government to show, look, there are others who are interested in what we do. So it was not only without self-interest. It was also, and it still is, important for us to have this growing sector of community land trusts here in Europe. And we're also happy that now there is a European community land trust network that professionally takes over this function. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gert. And maybe Jess, I know that that's one of the ideas that we have for our collaboration this year. So would you like to tell us a little bit about your learning center?
Hosting center, yes. There's kind of two sides to it, really. On the one hand, I've built up over many years a network in the UK of community asset developers. Some of them are community land trusts, others would call themselves something different, but they're all very similar to each other. And that group has formed itself into a kind of what it calls a mycelial network. So very much underground, spreading the nutrients around, very peer-to-peer, from areas of abundance to areas of scarcity and so on. So that, and really that's about solidarity, isn't it? It's about support, mutual support. And this can be a hard world to work in. You know, it's incredibly challenging. It's quite risky. You're combining the risks of property development with all the kind of social demand and needs. So it's a hard thing to work in, and really important that we have solidarity and connectivity. And then there's also, for Hastings Commons specifically, one of our strategic objectives has always been to demonstrate, learn from, and share a viable alternative to the traditional models of regeneration, of ownership, the things that weren't working for poor neighbourhoods, at least anywhere. And so, you know, if we can find an alternative and show that and share it, that seems to us to be a very important part of our work. I think, like Gert was saying, it's not just about doing what you do in your own place. It's always got to be about trying to change the world, because we're not just in it for our own places. We're trying to do something different. We have this kind of slogan: we look out for each other and we look after the place. And we always say it shouldn't be revolutionary. It's quite normal in a way. It should be normal, but unfortunately, a lot of the systems that we work within do not make that a normal thing. So we have to create new systems that do make it normal to look out for each other and look after the place. So the hosting centre is really a way of us sharing, but very much of us learning too. A space where people can come from anywhere in the world or across the country too, and share, learn, relax. Like we've got a really nice sea because it's a beautiful town, so have some rest time as well, and bond, connect to each other and learn from each other. And we're evolving it. We're co-designing it with the first lot of people who come. So we're just going to carry on evolving it over time, rather than suddenly, as we always do, rather than suddenly finishing it and cutting the ribbon and saying it's open. It's like get people in right from the start.
Thank you, Jess. That sounds wonderful. And I'm sure within the panelists and the audience here, you will have some candidates to come and join you. I wanted to move to Michael and to Maria-Olga with this topic. So first, maybe Michael, I'm interested in, the influence that Champlain Housing Trust had over inspiring so many others in the US, but also in other countries. I'm interested to know how that's strengthened you as an organization, and the learnings, if there are any from that process. And then Maria-Olga, I also know that Canyo has been supporting others. In particular, I was lucky to be in one of the Rio favelas a few years ago, where people said something that I heard you mention. We didn't think it was possible, and then we spoke to other people that have done it, and that made us believe it finally. So I'd like to, after Michael, if you could tell us a little bit about how that process was for you.
Thanks for the question, and I guess I would say that we have participated both up and into our community, and not just at this level. So we have participated in national organizations and movements to ensure that this model gets traction around the country, and do speak regularly. And Brenda Torpy was a former CEO for decades, actually works here as our technical assistance provider. And so she's always available to provide support to other organizations. And we do that. We do speak to others and try to provide that support to the various networks that we're part of. I would say also having both Bernie Sanders and Patrick Leahy, two senators in Congress, being huge supporters of community land trusts and shared equity home ownership, has been kind of critical to spawning the movement in the United States. A lesson. A small state, Vermont is this big compared to the rest of the country, but a small state has a couple of good leaders who are able to change the world. I think there's a Margaret Mead quote that goes to something like that. And in this case, two senators probably have had more impact on this opportunity to create this national movement. But I will always say, you don't create a national movement by simply looking up. You have to be in your community. The only thing that's replicable, the only thing that's best about who we are, is that we are part of this community. We build something that everybody in this community loves and wants and needs. Everybody around the world will go, look at that. Let's do that. So I believe strongly in sort of looking to what you need to do at the local level and doing that as well as you possibly can. Because then you can create, I think, the model for others, or certainly the opportunity for others to say, let's do more of that around in the communities in your country or around the world. I hope that was the right answer. I think it was a good one.
It was great. Thank you, Michael. Maria-Olga, would you like to tell us a little bit about your experience sharing with others?
Sure. The first thing is that in Puerto Rico, we didn't have the CLT model. It existed for other interests, for other income levels. And by exchanging and knowing experiences of Dudley Street, for instance, after that, we dared dream that this was possible, that we could do it. So from the very creation, the process of exchanging and having solidarity with other groups, that has been essential, and it still is. What Michael said also resonated with me. You have to stay local and stay rooted in your community, as well as sharing with others. So we're very proud of sharing that now in Puerto Rico, there are 3 additional CLTs. One of them is working on urban development and affordable housing. 2 CLTs work from the farming sector and how we preserve the land for farming needs and to have food in our country. And we've also had the opportunity of sharing our experiences with a Latin American group. We've been the inspiration for the model that they are trying to implement now in Brazil, so that they have their first CLT there in Rio. And recently we've had another exchange of experiences with a group from El Salvador. More than 90% of the residents in that community, through an open process, have decided to implement the CLT model there. So we think that it's like planting the seeds, as we've been planted the seed and we've been able to flourish and thrive in. So we are supporting other groups in the same process.
Thank you very much, Maria Olga. That's very interesting and inspiring to hear. We have so many questions in the question and answer as in the chat, but for those that are putting in the chat, just remember to put them in the question and answer box. Because we have so many questions, I propose that we move to that section now, unless you have anything final that you'd like to clarify or say, urgent, but you can also do it afterwards. Michael, I see that you've been answering some of the questions. Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Maybe we will start, Gert, with this one that we saw at the very beginning of the session. It appears now in the answered one, but I will read it for you. Since we are celebrating World CLT Day tomorrow, the question is, hello again, how can our organization's participation in World CLT Day can bring more visibility to CLTs in Haiti, like start the first CLTs in the country?
Oh, so the question is, how can they participate in World CLT Day to help get the CLT from the ground in Haiti? Is that the question?
How can participation help them in moving forward?
Well, as I think I said already, the fact that you can show that you are part of a global movement and that you are not doing something in your own corner, but that you are supported by similar organizations in very different neighborhoods and communities in the world is very powerful. That is a general answer, and a more practical, I would advise you to go and look on the website of World CLT Day, where you will find a lot of useful tools and inspiration on how you can participate. And I would encourage you to do, and everyone who is here today.
Thank you, Gert. Maybe I'll read some of the questions that are here, and then I'll leave it to you, to the panelists, to decide who goes for the next one. So Olu is asking, the challenge for CLTs, like other community housing models, such as cooperative housing, in emerging countries, especially in Africa, is how to scale this model of housing against the background of significant housing crisis, the absence of appropriate enabling policy, legal and regulatory framework, and lack of funding. I appreciate the thoughts of the speakers on how to overcome these challenges. I know you have spoken about this a little bit already, but if you have any further reflections for Olu, please go ahead. Maria Olga.
It's challenging. That cannot be denied. But I think that perhaps within that analysis included in the question as to the lack of a legal or regulatory framework that is appropriate, I think one of the big benefits of the CLT model is their flexibility and adaptability. So perhaps visualizing the benefits of the CLT model, that is the affordability, the integration of the community, permanence, that should be analyzed in the context of each situation to see what adjustments can be made to the model and to the benefits that you want to achieve through the model, following the principles of the CLTs. Perhaps in each country, in your country, it will be completely different, but the mission will be the same.
Thank you, Maria Olga. Sorry, let me change the language. Let me see, another question. So, oh, I see that, Jess, you've also been answering some. Great, thank you so much. Barbara is asking, I'll read it in Spanish. Well, I'll try to translate. It will be interesting to access the legislation that you created or in which you were based to make it work, make the CLTs work with your respective governments. So I don't know whether that's accessible somewhere or how can people access or see this kind of legislation that you have either worked with or created.
Well, I can only say that yes, we would be happy to share what has been done, but also, well, what Maria Olga was saying, I think is very important, especially when it comes to legal issues. It might be look overwhelming and impossible. That's what was told us too, that the Belgian law is so different from what from the American law system. And finally, we managed to use existing laws to create our community land trusts. It is also what I hear from colleagues in other European countries who always use a lot of creativity to use existing laws and to adapt them in order to create their community land trusts. Sometimes in France, for instance, I know there they had to create new laws before they started their community land trusts. But in many cases, if you find creative lawyers, you will find possibilities.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Gert. And yeah, just as a reminder, we will send the slides and make as much information as available after the session. So Barbara, you can also get in touch if you want something specific and we can connect you with CLTV or the other panelists.
I was just going to add,
yeah.
in the UK, really what we have there is a definition in a Parliamentary Act of 2008. So it's just a definition of community land trusts to do with community ownership and control, not-for-profit status, affordability, defined geographic area, etc. That arrived in 2008, but you could set up a community land trust before that, because really a community land trust is simply a legally defined organization, so which could be legally defined in whatever country and whatever legal system, but some kind of organization, even if it's just a company of some description, where local people have some sense of ownership. So that in every legal structure in the world, there is a way of creating something and defining its rules. And then the other thing I would say is that, as I said at the beginning, we've done all this mostly in spite of a lack of support, because we've done it within the private markets. And so if you can identify value somewhere that nobody else can see, it's one of the best things that local intelligence brings, is that you can look at something and for your community it matters, even when none of the developers or no one else is interested. So really a lot of the time you're looking for things that capitalism has forgotten, that are left in the cracks somewhere, and start with that and then build from there.
Thank you, Jess. That's really good answer. And I think it partly addresses the next question, but also I think it's for maybe Maria-Olga to bring some more insight from the informal settlement perspective. So Celine is asking, she says, great presentations. Would any of you have experience of CLTs working in Asia or Africa, and in contexts where government does not have the inclination or intention to engage with informal communities in their cities? So I think Jess partly answered that by saying, how this figure can be created almost anywhere. But Maria-Olga, maybe you want to reflect a little bit from an informal settlement perspective.
Greetings, Celine. I had the pleasure of meeting her a year ago. So, hi, Celine. I think the experience that both continents have is so rich in terms of organizational processes, in terms of access for informal communities and helping them overcome challenges with their local governments. Sometimes we say we cannot contribute much, in the sense that each of them knows their own reality. And just mention that I think it's very important to get to know the local context, identify those partners in your context, the challenges in your context, to start identifying alternatives to overcome it. The main factor is that the community then should identify the issue they want to work on. And if it's permanence, well, we can see different examples of how the groups can achieve that permanence, whether in the site or through negotiations. In Chile, for instance, there's an example of negotiations with the government and how those communities move in a consolidated manner. They are not dissolved. That is, the social pattern does not disappear.
Thank you very much, Maria-Olga. That's, I think, a really good answer. I'm trying, we won't be able to go through all of them, but please do get in touch after the session if you really want to know something specific. There is one here that maybe is for you, Michael. Shayla says, in Montana, USA, we have a statewide land trust, different from our local CLTs. Statewide is needed because we have so many small towns that cannot support a local trust. Any advice on how to build support statewide?
Sure, and I think that good question, and thank you for that. I would say, especially in Montana, and I'm going to just bring this perspective to the table, which is unusual, because I think we are very progressive in our thinking. We are anti-capitalist often enough, even as we work within the systems that we do work with. But we appreciate that, in fact, conservatives and our governments, likely in Montana, like the notion of preserving the affordability because it is a one-time investment, and it really protects the public investment forever, as opposed to someone simply walking off with the money and getting wealthy. That's the other way of doing these kinds of things. Give it to some private guy, he'll make it affordable for a while, and then it disappears, and the community suffers and keeps nothing. that the context in Burlington in the 80s was that, in fact, this movement was spawned both by progressive thinking and Republican thinking, conservative thinking around how to use public resources. So for Montana, the conversation is, if you're going to invest in this resource to build community, to create affordability, to ensure that that people are not displaced, do it once. Don't do it over and over and over again. And keep that resource community-based and allow people to be able to sort of value that resource over time. That's a very important message for very conservative governments, and something that rings true still in Vermont, but I would imagine also in Montana.
Thank you very much, Michael. I have another question here that is for Jess in particular. It says, can Dr. Steele talk more about what entrepreneurial risk taking entails for CLT's access of capital?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk certainly from Hastings Commons perspective that what happened in the beginning 10 years ago was that two social enterprise companies, one of them mine, Jericho Road Solutions, and another one called Meanwhile Space, bought between us our first building and immediately granted a third of the shares in the kind of property company to the Community Land Trust. So the CLT owns a third of that building. And we then got on with slowly, we didn't have any money, but we got a bit of money and a bit more and a bit more and got on with converting it and filling it. And then there was always the idea that it will become 100% owned by the Community Land Trust. But just when we got it full in 2018, it was all going beautifully. The derelict building next door that was 4 times the size came on the market. So we decided to mortgage this lovely, brilliant building that we'd created value in, right up to more or less its full value, to use that to buy this derelict building next door when we didn't have the money to do that one either. And we've been slowly again doing the same thing. So the level of risk to take on this building that had been empty 35 years was, no roof, full of pigeons, full of water coming through it, a huge level of risk to carry. I think the only reason it happened was because it wasn't a decision just for a board of charitable trustees who would have run a mile. Whereas because you had those entrepreneurs in there who are very socially driven, but used to taking some pretty serious risks, we went ahead. And the whole idea is, as the building portfolio becomes steady state and is earning more than it's costing, that's when the transfer happens, and the Community Land Trust will then own 100% of the property company and therefore 100% of all the buildings. So whereas if we'd asked them to be 100% owners from the beginning, I don't think we would have even bought the first building, let alone a lot of the buildings since. So you do need to take risks, otherwise you just never get moving and you don't create the impact that you want to.
Oh, can I applaud that, please? Because I think the most important thing here is that none of us who have done this work over time have done this simply without taking real chances, without taking risks, without doing something new, without being opportunistic. Those are the important elements of this. If we wait around to see what policies somebody else is going to generate for us from some bureaucracy, we'd all be sitting around somewhere else, doing something else differently today. We all had to sort of take a risk. We all had to step up and step out and take a chance to make all this work. That's the most important thing. Still, even now, that's what we do here at CHC. We're constantly looking around saying, can we do that? I don't know. Can we do that? And that frame is really an important, very important headset for everything that you do. Otherwise, there are other ways of doing this work that are much safer and much simpler. But I think the risk taking is a great thing to bring forward, Jess. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Michael. And what an excellent last reflection for this session. And I think going back to, highlighting this risk-taking approach has to do also maybe coming with the solidarity and the shared learning approach, that can feed into that, that can provide the conviction and the proof that it has worked somewhere and that is indeed possible. We have answered 14 questions, so we have done very well. And I thank so much our very engaged audience. I don't think I remember a session where I had so many questions. So really happy to see that much interest. And I'm sorry we couldn't go through absolutely all of them. I don't know if our panelists have any burning final reflections or thoughts they would like to share, but you have all been really fantastic today. So thank you very much. I have personally been inspired by your work for a very long time, and it's so great to have you here and to hear about your work, as well as Francesca, also thanks to you for being involved and committed and supporting all these risk takers from different countries. So it's been a really amazing session. Please don't go just yet, because Ben has some final words also for us.
Thanks, Mariana. Muchas gracias a todos, everybody. Thank you so much. Please stay on the line just 1 second longer for 2 quick announcements. One is that following this call, when it'll automatically close and an exit survey will pop up, I would be eternally grateful if you would please fill that out for us. And the second thing is that World Community Land Trust Day 2025 is in fact tomorrow. So please, please, please share all over social media, go crazy, have a great time, and show everybody what you're up to. Thank you so much, everybody. And
You know, Ben, I will just say this. When I told some friends that I was hosting the sessions, the first question was like, "Man, what is a community land trust?" And my answer was like, "I'll send you an animation on Friday."
there you go.
So
That's
maybe
it.
we can all do that. Send to our friends that are not yet converted, so that more people can know about this. We would love to see the movement growing, and that's part of the aim of this session. So.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, and see you tomorrow.
Great to have you. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice afternoon.